Hello everyone, Theo here. Today we will be drawing eyes. And I will share, well, basically everything I know about drawing eyes. So hopefully this will be useful to to some of you. Alright, so let's get started with some warm-ups. Alright, so some good proportions to know about eyes is that the total width of an eye is about 24 millimeters, and just so happens that, whoops, I'm really not a circly man today. Alright, and the iris is about 12 millimeters, so it should be that this distance is the same as this distance. So the radius, I guess you could say, of the iris is the same as the distance to the edge of the total sphere of the eye. Of course, if you're not drawing realistic eyes, then these proportions can vary a lot. But also good to know about this is that this means that basically the total width of what you might call the eye, including this part that's called the caruncle, is that the actual eyeball is actually less wide than the entire width of the eye. That's a bit of a mind-blowing thing, but this sort of explains why, if you would like actually look at an eye from above, you really do see, if you add the eyelids, that it's doing something like that, right? So it sort of makes sense that it has to be the case that the actual eye opening is bigger, because this part goes off a bit extra to the side. So another cool thing to know about the eyes is, of course, what we have, the white of the eye, it's called the sclera. Wow. My C's and L's get mixed up sometimes. The sclera. And what you have is something like that. Not that bad. Let's try to fix that, because it's a lot bigger. So there is a protrusion from the sclera, and this is called so the white of the eye is called the sclera, and it transitions into and it transitions into the cornea. So it's basically this milky white substance that just transitions into this transparent substance that becomes the refractory lens, or it's not actually, it's just it lets the light in from different angles. I suppose that's the point. But the reason why this is important to us is actually not so important for drawing. because usually we don't draw this, right? It would be technically correct to draw it like this, but I don't even think, like, the best painters in history haven't really minded this sclera business. It's just sort of interesting if you're into really highly realistic stuff, and I guess at that point you would already know about this, so maybe not the most important topic for eyes. What is, however, important is drawing circles, which I'm not super good at this morning, but so it's actually fine, because the eye itself in the head, it's not a perfect circle. It is sort of like this shape, and it has all these muscles or whatever attached to it. So it is sort of a organic weird blob thing. So when it comes to drawing, obviously when we draw characters, we're not just drawing these disembodied eyes. So what's important to understand about eyes is that the big part of the eye, the actual globe, of course, what's nice about this, in perspective, it doesn't change its shape, right? So whatever angle you're viewing it from, it's gonna be a sphere. The problem arises when we are going to add the eyelids and the iris. So what you need to be at least a little bit comfortable with when drawing the eye is to draw ovals, and understanding how they would be in perspective. So understanding that if you want something to look in a certain direction, you must understand perspective. And of course, the easiest direction, if you don't know perspective, is straight towards, because then you can just draw a perfect circle. And that will always be, if you want the character to look, it doesn't have to be like that the character is looking like this to be a perfect circle. If, say, you want the person to be looking at you from an angle, let's say, it's still the case that if you want to have the eye really look straight into the camera, then you just draw a perfect circle, and that will always be looking straight into the camera, no matter what angle. The next most important thing about eyes, besides knowing that they are round and they have a round iris, which I think you already knew, and they have a round pupil, is how do I put these in a head, right? How does this go into here? And for this, I would really recommend that you do studies of skulls, because this will help you out immensely in understanding what's going on here. So if we just do a little skull like this, then I think you will already know that the eye will sit in here. And the reason this becomes important is, again, the front view, I think, is always the most sort of comfortable thing for beginners to draw is front views, because then you never have to worry about the perspective, and you can just, you can learn to draw a nose and a lip, and everything is fine. And now you have this creepy old lady looking at you. The trouble starts when we get into so-called 3/4 views, and where we have the head looking in a different direction. And so I'll show you here why knowing the skull really helps. It doesn't just help for the eyes, it helps for everything, basically. It helps the understanding of the cheekbones, the cheeks, the lips, the nose, the eyebrows, why they wrap around like this. And it is here that you will understand that you can place the eyes inside of the eye sockets. And this in turn will help you create the eyelids. And then you can just place the iris. So what you need to know here to have a good understanding of how to place eyes in a head is so basic understanding of perspective. Like, if you don't understand what I'm drawing right now, that's the first thing you should learn. You should learn 1-point perspective, horizon lines, vanishing points, and then you can learn 2-point perspective, because if you just learn to draw boxes, then you can basically draw anything in perspective, because you can draw, it won't be a perfect ellipsis, because doing a perfect ellipse is actually really tricky, but you can at least start to place circles in perspective, and this will allow you to decide the look directions, and also help you actually just place the iris on the actual globe of the eye. So the things I've showcased previously, where you know where to put this on the sphere, which I suppose would also be a good thing to just one practice I've done a lot is to you draw circles, and then you overlay the same circle with circles going in different directions. So you can do like this, and that's like giving you the depth. So this is just flat, the flat outline, but this is like the depth axis of the eye, and you can do it in practice doing it then in a different direction, and then in another direction. And this maybe just looks like a mess to you, but the important thing when you practice this stuff is that it makes sense in your mind what you're actually drawing, and that you get a feel for perspective in your own mind, because the important thing, as always when drawing, is that it's you who should believe what you're drawing. If we go further into the anatomy knowledge of the placement of the eyes, I think knowing just more about whatever you're drawing makes you able to draw it better. So I'm just giving you all the information I have here. So here you have again a skull, and you might be wondering, how does the eye just float inside of the socket like that? And the answer is, of course, that it doesn't. It's attached here on the inside with a bunch of stuff. But then the question is, how does the eyelids attach? And actually what's going on here is that you have there's like a cartilage of the eyelid that looks a bit something like this. I think you probably noticed this at some point in your life, that you have like these sort of like half circles of cartilage inside of your eyelids, and these kind of suction cup onto the eyes, or the actual globe. And these in turn are attached here by more cartilage, and they attach to here. So what you will see is actually, if we shade this a little bit, this is like a tube shape coming down from these cartilage cups. The same thing is happening on the other side, it's just not as visible because there is other overlapping tissue and stuff. But thinking about these things can really help you when if you don't know at all about this stuff, then it just becomes so abstract and difficult to draw things. So I would say, like, getting better at drawing anything is if you get a name for something, then you can remember it, and if you just know it's there, you can also have a better chance of remembering it. And this, even though it might seem that it complicates things, that there is so much to know about even like such a small thing like the eyes, it really will help you in the long run to know that there are all these parts, because if you don't know what you're drawing, you won't be able to draw it, basically. Because if you start to separate these things out, you will be able to know that, for example, so this thing will always be there, and then you may have this mass above the eye may change its depth, so you may have a lot of different shapes of this form showing through, like the top of the eyelid, and the same is true. So this is all relating to what is the cavity of the eye socket. So you have the overhanging mass that can change its volume, and then you also have this pocket here that is below the eye that can also sort of change. It can, if you have someone that's a bit dark under the eyes, they have pretty thin skin and it's showing through, but you can also have if you have an older person, then they might get a bit saggy skin. It actually droops out from the eye socket, so it's not longer the fat that is under here is no longer contained, And this sort of simplifies. Just knowing these things, you basically have most of the knowledge you need to remember what an eye actually is. You have this upper part, this tube shape going along, and then you have this lower part, and then you have the actual eye globe itself, the iris, and then these cartilage that are the eyelids going across like this. And then this little thing that sort of divides these masses. Alright, I hope this was at least somewhat helpful to you guys. If you have any more questions about eyes or any other topic, please let me know. And I will try to share what I know about the subject. Alright, thank you guys. See you next time. Bye bye.